So we talked about the front table, Luch, this morning on the Texas radio a little bit. Look at this. This is what I started the show with today. They've been on something kind of different lately. The front table needs a sponsor. So they're basically opining for a sponsor of the front table. So if you're a local business and you want to sponsor the front table, like some of these jokers – like some of these jokers up here ain't got enough money to sponsor it on their own. If you're a local business and you want to tie your name to that front table, good luck. That's all I'll say. They're hollering at us. Anyway, signing day edition of the Beliucci Hour Lunch. Like I said, Liucci A&M adds to their 2019 class this morning with Fort Bend Dulles athlete Anaya Smith. We'll get your thoughts and your take on that. With a couple of, at least one more signature expected later on this afternoon. Well, I want to start with, just the latest news that you've got as it has started to hit the internet and social media on the departure of Texas A&M offensive line coach Jim Turner to the Cincinnati Bengals to coach in the NFL again with a family member of his, Zach Taylor, with the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough loss for A&M, but it's one that they can navigate and actually turn into a plus. Not right off the bat, and they're losing a really good coach and a guy who has the respect of the players, the locker room, the recruits, the rest of the coaching staff. So it's a tough loss, but it's not one. It's like the Tim Brewster one. It's a tough loss, but it's one you can overcome, and you can use it as an opportunity to get better in some area. Like you lose Tim Brewster. I don't know how it works. You might lose a guy that maybe he's better recruiting. And I'm just saying this. I'm trying to think like maybe he's better recruiting nationally than Joe John Finley. Maybe Joe John Finley's stronger in the state. And I don't even know if either of those are the case because I think Joe John is a really rapid up-and-comer in the profession. But let's say if it's that, or maybe Brew's a better recruiter, Finley's a better coach. Maybe in the case of Turner, you have a chance to get a better recruiter, which will be very important in 2020 and 21. Maybe you get a guy that can match him in terms of teaching technique and, with a stronger resume. So it's a chance to get better, or it's a chance just to kind of shake up a dynamic at a certain position. I think where it does hurt is next season. You love continuity at that position. You'd love to have an O-line coach at your school. If you're Jimbo Fisher and you're here for 10 years, you'd love to find that guy now after 1 year that'll be here the next 9, and so hopefully that's what this next hire will be. But if you look, what I was saying this morning, I want it to be a guy who has recruited Texas before, who has coached in the SEC at some point along the way, and who has been an OC. I would like to see that. And I would like to see it be somebody that is a veteran. I don't want a real young O-line coach that doesn't have a lot of experience. Those would be my preferences. And I think if you can check all those boxes, or maybe all but one of them, if you check all of them, then maybe you do have an improvement on your hands. It won't be easy, but it's an opportunity there.
I think what you said about the impact on next year's team, that's in the short term, that's the biggest issue because these guys, they're in their third year, a lot of them now starting or being around the program, that are on that offensive line, they just heard the same voice so much, and I think that helps with continuity along
Definitely
the offense.
does.
Yeah. And, grade his job of coaching this year. I think
he did a
B+, A-.
I think he did an A.
Yeah.
Solid A. I'm tough on the O-line, and I've had parents talk to me. Those O-line parents, they always seem like the ones that get it the most. Mm-hmm. Dads of players come up and say, man, I like what you're doing. It's really the only position I hear it from sometimes is that and quarterbacks. But those are the two hardest that you evaluate because it's like the O-line, your kid could play great one week and the O-line give up 4 sacks and stink, and it's like, hey, the O-line was bad, and it's hard to even pick out someone that played well when the unit's doing that poorly. And I just think it's such an important element in this league that I grade it on, I think, a much tougher scale. And, sometimes Jim Turner was kind of fighting with one hand tied behind his back in terms of the scheme they were playing prior to Fisher getting here. And then before this year, I don't know if they had really the talent, but I thought he did a really good job of getting his unit, maybe more so than any wide receiver would certainly be in the conversation as well, to get so much better from start of season to end. I thought they were doing such a better job. You did have to navigate one key injury there with Hawker, and they did that. I thought he did a bang-up job this year. Again, it's big shoes to fill. It's by no means impossible shoes to fill. And in fact, again, I would be willing to bet that this stuff does not happen in a vacuum, guys. I've been hearing about. You guys saw rumors of it a couple weeks ago. I've been hearing about it for about 3 weeks now. It wasn't a done deal, so that's why we're not writing about it, and no reason to sound the alarm for something that wasn't surely going to happen when Texas A&M is trying to close out a recruiting class. For those of you that are offended because you heard it out of Cincinnati before you heard it out of our mouths, and then you go, well, Liucci claims he always knows everything.
Is that my accent?
Well, no, that's people.
Oh.
That's the hater. The
high-pitched version of me.
That's the Texags haters. Oh. We get that a lot in the varsity forum. They've become very antagonistic towards me, and I am vicious. But sometimes I don't think people understand why. And now I'm talking about that it's been out. I'm not trying to sit there and act like it's some special cool thing that I knew about it. I just knew that the Bengals and him were in talks. I knew that there was a very high chance he would go play for Zach Taylor. And I also knew that 3 times last year he looked elsewhere. Notre Dame, UCLA, and the Raiders. And he stayed. He loves A&M. But at the end of the day, I think his deal was going to end in the NFL because I think he's such a good teacher of the stuff, and those NFL guys it's like they can really learn it. Their mental capacity and aptitude is so high at that level. And then on top of that, I mean, just being honest, that you don't have to recruit.
Yeah.
And that's not for everyone. And Jim Turner did a good job of it, but it's not for everyone. It is a freaking grind. And I think Lee Grimes, who needs to be mentioned because he was such a big part of what Jim Turner did, and Lee Grimes was a huge part of their recruiting
he's done
efforts.
With his GA stint, so he's going to go try to become a full-time coach somewhere, which is what he needs to do for his career.
And I don't think it'll be Lee here, if you're asking me that, my opinion. But I think if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I would be like, listen, I'm going to do everything I can to get you a job, a good one, your own job, and I bet you'll be back here coaching at A&M before long.
Yeah, but it is a big hire because of what's on campus.
Yep.
And what you've got in the upcoming recruiting classes in state.
Yeah.
It's one that whatever you had your check boxes, right? Whatever Jimbo's check boxes, it's important that he checks all of them. And whether they align with yours or not, whatever his are, he's got to find a guy.
I bet his are pretty similar. You want to bookmark something and tag it. I bet his are pretty similar. I bet who he hires will fit most of those criteria.
Do you think it has –
much like they did with Mike Elko when I spelled that out for everyone and we had that lunatic just crack the code, even though one of the things was not deliberate, but it was completely off the scent type of deal.
Yes, and I've been this news had been communicated with the recruits, and so it's out there, and a lot of people are talking about it. The initial reaction that I've gotten, and I put it on TexAgs, Billy, is that for the most part, people are going to stick around and see what happens with this O-line hire. But he's going to come in, and he's going to maybe have his own preference on the way he wants to do things. And like I said on the radio this morning, it all runs through the big man. But he may come in here and say, hey, I want to look at maybe a longer offensive lineman. Or maybe I'm looking for a guy that's built with a lower center of gravity for what we want to do. So if there's movement in recruiting because of this, it's part of the process. It's part and parcel of the process, right?
No question about it.
On the other side of the break, we'll get into the signing class a little bit more in depth.
Part and parcel.
Yep. We'll get into the recruiting class, talk much more about what we expect the rest of the day. You listen to Beliucci Hour Lunch live.